Hello everyone! In today's video, I'll be talking about a few of my hyperfixations and special interests from my life. The first one was general Greek mythology media. It started with Senseiya, the 80s anime, which I liked for a few years since I was really young, maybe up to 4 years old I started watching. I really liked it, and it was something I was very interested for a long time, and kind of inspired me to get interested in other uh, media, be it books, movies, uh, all in the theme of Greek mythology. I'll never actually read like ac- actual books about Greek mythology. It was just Greek mythology inspired. uh, I tried to read on other mythologies, but it didn't interest me as much. And is I still kind of have that interest. It's not just as much anymore, but I still have a very general liking of things related to it. And connecting to the first one, the next one was Percy Jackson. The next one was Percy Jackson slash Rick Riordan. I started reading Percy Jackson books when I was 13 years old, 12 to 13, and I really liked. Uh, I read the first 5 books, and then found out that there were a bunch of other books. Then I read Heroes of Olympus, Magnus Chase, The Trials of Apollo, and then Kane Chronicles. I have an interest until this day. I'm still very hyperfixated on some of the characters. Example, Alex Fierro and Leo Valdez. I love them very much, and I think about them constantly throughout my day. So it's been a few years that I'm very interested in it. Uh, it never dies down. I like all from I kind of forget it, quote unquote. But a little bit of like insighting and people talking about it just got me so interested. Like it was the first day that I read about it or was reading again. So it's something I had very close to my heart. Uh, the next one that I had a hyperfixation a few years ago was specifically the It movie. Uh, I never watched any horror movies before. I'm not someone that watches a lot of horror movies, even though I enjoy a lot of horror media. But I think what I liked a lot about this movie specifically was the character dynamics and the story and all of that. It wasn't just about the horror, which I thought it was really interesting. I liked seeing those characters interacting on screen, having designs and all of that. I never went to actually read the book. I read a few pages and I knew about like all the controversies, but I never got too much into it. I really like the movie. Besides that, I ended up having a hyperfixation on it for about like 8 months. So quite a lot of time, but not so much, I think. The next one that I had, that was a more recent one, was the Magnus Archives podcast. I heard about this podcast from a friend of mine at the time, and I just really enjoy it. It was the second fiction podcast I heard in my life. It was the second podcast I heard in my life. And I just love everything about it. I love the horror stories, I love the setting, I love the world building, I love the characters. It's just so great. um, I'm not usually someone that actually gets scared by horror media, but some of the episodes of the podcast generally make me like really scared and like, oh my god, I have to step down and just breathe a little because this is getting intense. And I still hold close to my heart. I love the main characters. I especially love the main character, the protagonist, Joe. I love him way too much. Then we have some two characters specifically that I had huge hyperfixations on, but in different time periods. The first one being Denki Kaminari from My Hero Academia. In the beginning that I started watching, I was about 12 when I first heard of My Hero, and when I was watching, he wasn't the first one that I really liked, but it was after a few years actually that I watched the anime and I started interacting more with the fandom and thinking more about his character until I was hyper fixated on him for like a year and a few months. I would draw him constantly. I would think about him constantly. I did a lot of drawings that are kind of missing because of some issues. I still have a few on my sketchbook, but I didn't draw as much. I made my friends draw the characters for me in art traits. I would draw their character, a character they would like. It's like, oh, what character do you want? And it was always the same answer to the point my friend will like memorize his entire character design because of how often they would have drawn it, which is kind of funny. And the next one is Sal Fisher from the game Sally Face. Sally Face is my favorite game of all time. I love it so much. It's one of my big inspirations from art and storytelling and game media. It's just great. I love it. But Sal specifically is a character that on the surface I didn't like him so much when I first was playing because you see things from his perspective. And even though he was great, he's amazing, he's incredible, my first focus was on the setting and on the other characters. But when a few years later, from the first time playing the game and having a big interest, went back and replayed the game, I just fell in love with him, and it hasn't passed yet. I still draw him constantly. I still write about him to my friends almost every week, and I just love it. I see content about him constantly. Replaying the game a fifth time again just because of him, and just his design, his personality, everything is just great. Even though the game itself, I now realize there's not so many good points on it. Like there's some things I would change. I can not stop being attached to it. It's just I love it. It's just great. And the last one being I feel the last hyperfixation was slash special interest that I had was for general YouTube artists. Um, the first one that I had a big hyperfixation on in 2020 was Oliver Antics. I haven't watched his videos since he talked about his target audience and how he didn't want minors enjoying, so I kind of stopped watching him. But in that time period, until he made this video, I had a huge hyperfixation. He was the reason I actually started really drawing because I kind of draw like not really taking it seriously and not doing any studies or anything like that. In his videos, what pushed me to start drawing and training anatomy and hair and just all these basic fundamentals for art. So even though I don't watch his videos now and I don't know what is going on with him, I still hold his content really close to my heart. The next ones are Jinja Ninja, OWO, ABD illustrators, and also hilariously scary. All of them are in kind of the same category, which is their characters and their art style. I just was really into, separately of course, into their videos for a few months. And it was just exclusively I would rewatch. I mentioned all of the three together because they all were very similar happy fixations in the sense that I would watch it all of the recent videos until like 3 years ago or even more than that depending on the channel, and I'll just watch and rewatch just thinking on the characters and the art style. It was just constantly, it was a really big thing. It all of them happened for a few months, and a few months each. I think KBD was like for 3 months, Jinja Ninja was for 6, and Hilariously Scary was for like 4 months. So yeah, quite a lot of time. My most currently hyperfixation on a general YouTuber is Grimaldia, also known before as Dolly Guts, and is also named Tirza. I love their videos. They're what inspired me to create my channel in the first place, and what is influencing mostly my art at this point. I love their videos. I love their characters. I love watching their streams. I love the content that they make, and I spend most of my day watching their content or seeing their DeviantArt, reading tweets, or something similar. I just really interesting. I love the aesthetic, the characters, all of that. It's great. This video was my first, and it was just me rambling about things that I'm interested. But I hope you all like it. I'll be doing more videos in the future. The character playing the speed pet is my OC, Devin. I haven't done much content of him, but I do have a little bit of a oscillar. So if you guys want to hear about it, just tell me. I also have a few stories ideas and more OCs. So if you're interested, I'll make a video about it. And my DeviantArt is Grease 3 and Void all together. You can find mostly OC drawings, but I will post more stuff later. I'm very a beginner in DeviantArt, so it's kind of a mess. But I hope you all like this video. Give a like, subscribe, and that's it. Bye!